our county assessor, Larry Stone, with us today. And Larry Stone was first elected as assessor in 1994, has been overwhelmingly reelected. And if anyone knows what he's talking about, I would say it's our county assessor, Larry Stone. So thank you so much, Larry, for being here with us. I don't want to take up too much of introduction time. We will go ahead and introduce the people in the room. That way you do know who is here, and we can do that really quickly. I'm Diana Batista. I am chair of the committee, and I'm with Stanford Children's. All right, we're going to play popcorn style, so folks get ready to unmute. We're going to go with Kim Cranston.
Hi, Kim Cranston. Hi, Larry. With Los Altos Forward, Los Altos Property Owners Downtown, and Los Altos Community Coalition. Thank you.
Michael Murphy.
Michael Murphy, Rolfer, member of the chamber.
Joe Maletti.
Good morning, Joe Maletti with Avid Bank, and currently on the board of the chamber.
Ginny Lear.
Hi, Larry. Los Altos, Ginny Lear, Los Altos Women's Caucus.
Dennis Young.
Morning, Larry. Dennis Young, Los Altos Town Crier. And I don't know if we'll be able to appropriately boo you, Larry, but consider it done.
Yeah.
You don't boo me, you don't know me, and that's the worst thing for a politician, right? Not to be known.
Then we will all boo you in unison.
John Cowan.
Hi, Larry. John Cowan, Senior Director of Government Relations and Community Partnerships at El Camino Health. Nice to see you.
Scott O'Brien.
Hi, Larry. Scott O'Brien, Cushman and Wakefield, and a former member of the Chamber Board.
Maria Crowder.
Hi, I'm Maria Crowder. I'm Business Development with the Los Altos Chamber.
Mira Petrova. Okay. Heather McDonald.
Good morning, Heather McDonald, the Executive Director of the Los Altos Educational Foundation.
I just see Steve.
Steve Rushton with Sereno.
Thank you. Goodness. Diane Schmitz.
Diane Schmitz with Sereno. Thank you.
Anthony.
Anthony Carnesecca, Economic Development Administrator for the City of Los Altos.
Alex Lewis. Alex? Okay, we got two folks not too familiar with. Autumn Young.
Good morning. My name is Autumn Young, and I'm the Deputy Assessor for the County of Santa Clara.
Well, thanks for being here.
I'm excited to be here.
Did I miss anyone? Okay. Got some more folks joining us. But in the meantime, Larry, we're just going to go ahead and get started. Thank you so much for being here with us.
Well, great, and good morning. You know, COVID-19 inserted a level of uncertainty in the global economy that made normal economic analysis very difficult. Silicon Valley, as we all know, is a global magnet for high-risk venture capital. So when times are good, they're very, very good. But when things turn down, the descent can be dramatic. It's like when Warren Buffett said, "It's only when the tide goes out that you learn who is swimming naked." COVID has had a monumental health and humanitarian crisis of global significance. COVID painfully impacted the most vulnerable American households, creating serious economic dislocation. Silicon Valley has the highest level of income and wealth inequality in the United States, which increased dramatically during COVID. The COVID disruption impacted the way we engage with others in social activities, how we interact with others in the workplace, how we traveled, how we shopped, even how we bought groceries. Business investment, retail sales, home construction, exports, and consumer and government spending all reached record levels of decline in 2020. The federal government, and to a lesser extent the state, reacted to this crisis quickly by providing a huge financial stimulus to boost the economy, $2.5 trillion in direct payments and $1 trillion in tax relief. Well, in my opinion, the federal stimulus was excessive and completely undisciplined. The purpose of a stimulus is to put money in the hands of people, expecting that people will spend the money, therefore boosting the economy. Well, during COVID, people could not spend the money they received because everything was shut down. So many people saved their stimulus and in some cases even their unemployment checks. The result, a significant increase in savings, not spending, which is contrary to the purpose of a stimulus payments to begin with. During COVID, Americans were stockpiling savings, which reached a 30-year high. Consumer loans and credit card balances reached their lowest level in years. Suddenly, in the last half of 2021, however, Americans started to spend at record levels. Consumer spending is the primary driver of the U.S. economy, accounting for almost 70% of all economic activity. Despite skyrocketing consumer prices in April, consumer spending continues to rise faster than inflation. Robust consumer spending combined with widespread product and worker shortages has created the highest level of inflation since the 1980s. One of the principal causes of inflation is you, me, and us. Stop spending. The Bay Area inflation rate jumped at an annual rate of 5% in April compared to 8.3% nationally. Supply chain disruptions, rapid consumer demand and spending, and historic housing costs fueled this boost in inflation. Most economists believe that inflation will persist well into next year. The U.S. economy has run headfirst into a perfect storm of high demand and low supply, soaring prices and rising interest rates. Inflation is wiping out strong gains in wages and salaries, which have flowed to American workers recently. Everything from food and fuel to rent and automobiles, both new and used, all cost more than a year ago. There are two types of inflation. The first is cost of materials and products, but the second is more intractable, labor inflation. In the Bay Area, there is a new term, rent inflation. In March, the Fed enacted 2 of the first 3 interest rate hikes expected this year. You know, it's very delicate. If the Fed raises borrowing costs to slow growth and tame inflation, it could drive the economy into a recession. The supply chain disruptions exacerbated by the Russian invasion of Ukraine and pandemic lockdowns in China are the most serious problem facing the American economy right now. Our ports are hopelessly clogged. It takes 9 days for a ship anchored in Long Beach and LA harbors to unload, an increase from just 2 days in 2019. The shortage of silicon chips required for nearly every product today, like automobiles, is the most serious, and it may be 2 years or more before that problem is resolved. Such supply chain bottlenecks and higher wages are causing companies to pass higher costs on to consumers. Grant Thornton's chief economist Diane Schwank said, and I quote, "High prices are the ultimate corrector of high prices." In other words, if stuff costs too much, consumers and businesses pull back, which could have economic consequences. The U.S. economy is beginning to cool from high inflation and interest rates increases. GDP declined in the first 3 months of this year, the first quarterly decline since 2020. All this economic chaos and uncertainty has resulted in a labor shortage, particularly a shortage of service workers. The U.S. service worker sector employs a majority of Americans. But is there really a labor shortage? Is it a job problem or a worker problem? Some economists believe that it is not a labor shortage, just companies not willing to increase wages sufficiently to induce workers to work for them. The number of job openings reached a record 11.5 million in March. There are 2 types of job openings for every unemployed worker. At the same time, unemployment claims reached their lowest level in more than 50 years, as U.S. employers have added over 400,000 jobs for 12 straight months. Is this a little bit confusing to you? I think it is to me. despite the fact that the US economy is recovering rapidly and 12 million jobs lost to COVID have been recovered. There are still 5 million fewer jobs today than there were in February 2020. 350,000 of those are in California. The US has recovered 94.6% of the jobs lost from the pandemic. The Bay Area and California lagged the national job recovery. The Bay Area has recovered just 80% of the jobs lost, California 91%. The Bay Area job growth increased 5.8% year over year, causing Silicon Valley unemployment rate to fall dramatically from 6.3% to 2.5%, now below pre-pandemic levels. Comparatively, the state unemployment rate was 5.6% in April. Tech jobs are now 5% above pre-COVID levels. We have recovered, declared Russ Hancock, CEO of joint venture Silicon Valley. Americans are quitting jobs at a record pace. In the month of March, 4.5 million workers quit their jobs, the highest on record. A sign that they are confident that they can find better pay or improved working conditions elsewhere. It's referred to as the Great Resignation. You know, the song, "You Can Take This Job and Shove It," comes to mind. Actually, it's really the Great Reshuffle. COVID also gave many people time to rethink their lives and their careers, and many have decided to ditch previous jobs in industries like restaurants and hospitality for higher pay and benefits in transportation and warehousing, for example, providing a more consistent work schedule. Workers have discovered that they can leverage a chaotic labor market to their advantage, a rare opportunity to demand better pay and working conditions. And finally, retirements accelerated during COVID. You know, the long-term future of the job market is somewhat clouded, as more baby boomers are leaving the labor force than millennials, those born after 1980, and Gen Zers born after 1996 are entering the labor force. In the long term, this could have serious consequences. You know, baby boomers grew up in households with 3 or 4 children. Demographers tell us that millennials are having an average of 1.2 children. Consequently, there won't be enough sufficient Gen Zers, the children of millennials, to maintain a stable workforce in the future. Increased immigration and robotics are the only solution to meet our future workforce demand. Americans, however, have been poisoned by anti-immigration sentiments and the political rhetoric that comes with it. For long term, the Bay Area economic challenges remain: housing, transportation, and economic competitiveness. Economists like Chris Thornburg of Beacon Economics said over a year ago that the COVID recession was technically over because it had none of the long-term characteristics of the 2008 Great Recession. Thornburg recently said there's been no collapse of wealth, just huge inequity in wealth distribution. The Great Recession lasted nearly 8 years. The COVID recession technically lasted only 18 months. Thornburg said that the COVID recession was the deepest, but the shortest recession in economic history. California is a large and diverse economy, we know that, but that diversity is our strength because it creates a broader economic base. Silicon Valley's economy is structured to resist long-term declines in economic activity. Big tech has a special kind of resilience because innovation is the driving force behind our success. Economic uncertainty and COVID didn't stop venture capital investments, however. Venture capital, led by a record number of mega deals in the Bay Area, hit a record high, reaching $80 billion last year and $29 billion in the third quarter alone. And angel investments were also up 21% year over year. There are significant differences between the 2008 Great Recession and the COVID recession. The 2008 Great Recession was caused by subprime mortgage credit fraud and excessive risk-taking by major financial institutions. Worker layoffs back then were more permanent. The U.S. economy didn't fully recover from the Great Recession until around 2015. The huge spike in unemployment, in which 22 million jobs were lost virtually overnight, the fastest decline in economic history was directly related to the sudden health pandemic outside of the normal financial system. Workers were laid off from profitable, sustainable businesses that were ordered to close. So what are some of the economic implications of this pandemic on our real estate markets? Well, the most obvious, the travel, hospitality, and leisure sectors. They were hit first and hit hardest. The hotel and lodging sectors are most vulnerable due to the decrease in tourism and business travel, in addition to government-imposed limits on public gatherings, conventions, conferences, trade fairs, and sporting events. Hotels that depend primarily on business travelers, the largest source of hotel revenue, suffered the most. During COVID, business travel was down 85%. Investment interest in hotels, however, is booming. A Santa Clara County hotel investment is up 174%. The San Jose Marriott in downtown San Jose was valued at more than $200 million as a part of a 25 hotel sale transaction. That's $400,000 a room. But listen to this. A 59-room iconic hotel in Monterey recently sold for $2.5 million a room. The hotel industry, however, is not expected to be fully recovered from the 2019 levels until around 2024. The airlines and hospitality industries are dependent upon each other. The airline and aerospace industries have been in a severe state of disarray. The disaster for the travel industry in 2020 was 10 times worse than 9/11. Leisure travel is beginning to increase, and business travel was expected to pick up later this year as the public is slowly gaining confidence in the health and safety of airline travel. As businesses, however, become more comfortable with Zoom and webinars, this could have a more permanent impact on business travel and ultimately on lodging. Well, the next sector is the retail sector. The one sector that is increasingly weaker is retail. Fear of social contact and plummeting consumer confidence exacerbated the serious challenges already facing the retail sector, particularly in-store retailers. Restaurants, food and beverage outlets, and major malls suffered from compulsory or self-imposed access restrictions. Bloomberg reported that 11,000 restaurants, more than 10% of all restaurants in the United States, closed permanently last year. According to CBRE, it will be at least a year or two before the restaurant market comes back from the free fall, as the public begins to feel more comfortable. The increasing prevalence of online shopping versus traditional brick and mortar stores all point in the same direction, that online sales continue to grow exponentially faster than in-store sales. The retail bubble has burst, and the problem is not cyclical. I believe it is a forever trend. Retail malls are leading the retail mess. It's referred to as the unmalling of America. One major retail researcher projects that 30% of the nation's 1,100 malls will close in the next 4 years. He stated, and quote, "Malls as a property type are dead. Malls are only worth the dirt they sit on. Their structures have no value." Think about that. The French company that is the principal owner of Valley Fair and Oak Ridge malls, the largest owner of retail malls in the world, announced recently that it would divest the company of all malls in the United States over the next 3 years. Forbes reported that nearly 16,000 retail locations closed permanently last year, compared to just 7,000 in 2019, and 60% of those are mall-based. CBL Properties, one of the nation's largest mall owners, with 90 malls, filed for bankruptcy in 2020. You know, the U.S. is simply overstored. Traditional shopping centers, particularly malls, are being repurposed to consumer centers with a mixture of uses, including fitness, health and wellness, co-working operations, or just being converted to things like offices, affordable housing, distribution centers for e-commerce, classrooms, churches, museums, even transitional space for the homeless. San Diego's Horton Plaza, a 900,000 square foot open air 5-level retail mall encompassing 6.5 city blocks in downtown San Diego has been redeveloped as a mixed-use tech and life science hub. Local elected leaders must give up their love affair with retail shopping centers for the sales tax revenue, as in-store retail is a declining enterprise. With the inevitability of autonomous cars, vast surface parking lots present an opportunity for housing development. You know, millennials are the driving force behind e-commerce. Millennials grew up in a one-click world where speed and convenience is expected, indeed demanded. The decline of the middle class is having a profound effect on retailers. Deep discount retailers like dollar stores are doing extraordinarily well. The barrage of retail bankruptcies, store closures, and diminishing revenues. It has truly become the survival of the fittest. As name brand, debt-ridden retailers, and we all know their names, Circuit City, Mervyn's, Blockbuster Borders Books, Loehmann's, Sports Authority, Linens and Things, Toys R Us, Payless Shoes, Forever 21, Tuesday Morning, Orchard Supply, J. Crew, Lord & Taylor, Brooks Brothers, Steinmart, Pier 1 Imports, and Sears continue to disappear or file for bankruptcy. One retail leader described it as the 3 C's: closures, consolidations, and contractions. Excess Space Solutions Company projects that retailers are expected to downsize their storefront space by 40 to 50% over the next 10 years. Nevertheless, e-commerce sales still represent only 18% of all total retail sales, while 4 in every 5 U.S. consumers regularly shop online, and 40% of those online shoppers buy something on Amazon once a month. In my household, I think it's once a week. So are there any winners? Well, there are. Walmart, Target, Costco, and Amazon. Amazon's market cap hit 1.2 trillion yesterday, which is greater than the market cap, and listen to this, of the other 15 retailers combined. And those other retailers can include Walmart, Costco, Target, Nordstrom's, Best Buy, and 10 others. Amazon's acquisition of Whole Foods sent shockwaves through the grocery industry. One industry expert described it as, quote, Amazon declaring war on every supermarket and corner store in America. Many believe that Amazon, Apple, Google, and Facebook are abusive monopolies and that our markets are no longer competitive. Google has a 92% market share and accounts for 22% of the S&P 500 all by itself. Apple owns 4 of the 5 biggest apps, 79% of the smartphone profits, and became the first $3 trillion company. Facebook has 2 billion subscribers, nearly as many as Christianity has followers. The Federal Trade Commission in 40 states filed suit accusing Facebook of illegally crushing competition by buying up rivals like WhatsApp and Instagram. At the same time, we are seeing a transformational turn in the retail industry. It's called clicks to bricks. Established e-commerce retail brands have been opening brick-and-mortar retail locations, benefiting from their e-commerce brand and success, building a retail presence, but most importantly, improving their distribution footprint. Median home prices in Santa Clara County increased 26% to 1.8 million year over year. Fewer homes for sale, global unrest, and stock market declines have given would-be homebuyers concern. Low mortgage interest rates, high savings rates, fewer homes for sale, and pent-up demand for more living space during COVID drove quick sales and high home prices to record levels, sometimes 30% more than list prices. The majority of home buyers are waiving contingencies with as-is and all-cash offerings prevailing. The median time a home is on the market has declined from 23 days in 2019 to just 8 days in the San Jose metropolitan area, and I think it's even lower than that. The high-end single-family market is still hot in Silicon Valley. Wealthy tech professionals, driven by record stock prices and low interest rates, have been snapping up expensive homes. Apartment rents have fully recovered, up 12.8% for both new leases and renewals. However, high home prices and increasing mortgage rates should cool the market as the year progresses. The jury is out on the long-term impact of teleworking on the office market. Most experts believe that they will ultimately settle on some kind of hybrid approach. So what impact has COVID had on commercial real estate? Silicon Valley's commercial property market recorded its highest year ever in 2021, according to CBRE. Colliers reported that Silicon Valley office vacancy rates in March at 9.8%. 132 office and R&D buildings representing 15.1 million square feet of space were purchased last year in Silicon Valley. Avison & Young reports that there are 115 office properties under construction or in the planning pipeline in Silicon Valley, totaling 51.7 million square feet of space. Boston Properties resumed work on their 1.1 million square foot Class A office building, which the company shut down when COVID hit. There are 16 million square feet of high-rise office space under construction or in the pipeline in downtown San Jose alone. Not all of that, however, will be built. Silicon Valley office rents reached an all-time high last year, according to Colliers. LinkedIn, Tesla, Google, Apple, Amazon, and Facebook completed major leases and property acquisitions in the fourth quarter of 2021. CBRE recently declared Silicon Valley the #1 market for office development in the U.S. Our high-tech ecosystems is the reason. Boy. The Mercury News reported that investors are, quote, gobbling up existing Bay Area office buildings, a reflection on the long-term strength of the tech sector. The Silicon Valley industrial and warehouse markets are very strong. Locally, industrial and warehouse vacancies were 1.8% in March, below pre-COVID levels. Green Street Real Estate, a firm I respect, expects dramatic growth in industrial property values. So who are some of the winners from this pandemic? Well, the healthcare industry, of course, healthcare, clinics, labs, medical device manufacturers, entertainment, like Netflix, tech companies like Facebook, Apple, Google, and Microsoft, and teleconferencing like Zoom and webinars, and of course, Amazon again. Online retailers are benefiting, accelerating the impact of e-commerce on brick and mortar retailers. The increase in online shopping created a demand for more logistics facilities. Logistics and data centers and life science sector are on fire, and it's not a one-off, but a serious trend. As consumers shift from in-store purchasing to online, and consumers demand faster shipment, even same-day delivery, e-commerce distribution centers must be located closer to city centers. Then there's reverse logistics, the need to facilitate an increase in the number of returns. This will continue to fuel the demand for the logistics sector. Industrial real estate, particularly warehouse, the last mile of distribution, will be the most desired asset class this year, I believe. Single family is also expected to be strong, including the newest trend, single family detached homes for rent. Millennials are the driving demand for this type of product. Hospitality and retail again bring up the rear. COVID also took its toll on tax revenues. You know, government spending is an important component to a healthy economy. There's a connection between economic growth and tax revenues. So when tax revenues decline, so does government spending. McKinsey & Company analyzed the impact of automation on job growth and concluded that 46% of jobs could be replaced by the current methods of automation by 2030. A Stanford computer science professor said at the 2019 Joint Venture Silicon Valley Conference that 50% of all jobs could be automated by artificial intelligence today. For example, there's 3.5 million truck drivers and 700,000 bus drivers in the US who will be displaced by autonomous trucks and buses. Cruise, a subsidiary of General Motors and Waymo, are operating robot cars without backup drivers on the streets of San Francisco today. Driverless technology has moved out of the R&D phase. By 2023, you'll be able to text up an autonomous taxi cab. You can do that right today in Chandler, Arizona. And finally, I'd like to comment on the concern over the great California exodus. While it is a concern, it is not a crisis. In 2021, more than 280,000 people left California for other states, then moved to California from other states. So where do these Californians go? Well, Texas, Arizona, Nevada, Washington, and Oregon. And where did these new Californians come from? Well, Texas, Arizona, Nevada, Washington, and New York. The population slowdown is triggered by a slump in births, reduced immigration, a rise in deaths, many due to COVID, and a steady stream of people leaving California. In the 10 years ending in 2019, however, California's exit rate was 1.6%, the lowest of any state in the nation. In Silicon Valley, only 4 major companies have left California, but by and large, their workforce didn't follow with them. Tesla is still manufacturing automobiles in Fremont, and Tesla also recently leased a 325,000 square foot office building in North San Jose. Apple purchased 5 office buildings in Cupertino last year. Now, we never want to lose population, particularly because recently California lost a congressional seat. But a crisis? No. A concerning trend? Probably. Apple is worth $3 trillion. Google is worth $2 trillion. Facebook is worth $1 trillion. 80% of all tech R&D continues to be right here in Silicon Valley. That's not going to go away anytime soon. So I think the demise of Silicon Valley is grossly exaggerated. Well, these are my observations today, but in this economy, tomorrow could be completely different. Stay tuned. So now if there's time, I'd be glad to answer any questions you have.
Thank you so much, Larry. I don't know how to feel after that. So we're going to go straight to questions. Dennis Young, you have your hand raised.
Yeah, Larry, can you comment on what the effects have been of Prop 19? Have you seen any changes in patterns?
Well, we did get a lot of applications. As you know, if you're familiar with it, there was a couple of deadlines there that people had to meet, so that people were hustling to get their applications in. The problem with Proposition 19, it was probably the most convoluted ballot measure that any of us in government for a long time have ever seen. It was put together literally in 1 week without hearings, and it provided no implementation language or direction to assessors. So you pass a ballot measure that requires people to meet certain deadlines, but no way to implement it. So it was a major problem for assessors. You know, we follow the law. Assessors follow the law no matter what it is, even sometimes when we don't agree with it. But when you don't have any implementation language, and it took the state legislature almost a year to finally fix most, but not all of the problems. The issue is many people are leaving here for other places. Very few people exercise a Prop 19 to come into this county because we have the highest housing costs of anywhere in the nation. So it's mainly people going, when I talk to assessors, Napa is a very popular place. San Luis Obispo is popular. Places where it's comfortable to live, and somebody can sell the average home for 1.8 million and go somewhere else and get a much bigger home for less money. So I hope that answers your question. Yes, we're seeing a significant increase, maybe not as much as we thought there would be, but I don't know why we would think any differently. that's where we stand, and now we're much more we, meaning assessors, are much more comfortable in the implementation of the Prop 19.
Any other questions or comments? Larry, you mentioned the closing of the malls, and as someone who lived by the malls, it's here in San Bruno, we're losing Tanforan. That was long-standing. They tried to redevelop itself, and it just didn't stick. And that's going to become, I think, like tech companies or some sort of company, and mixed use is going to go in there. So it's just a turning of a page, I guess. I mean, is there something we can point back at history where we kind of like saw a reshuffle of how things have been done and to kind of feel a little bit more optimistic?
Well, the biggest issue, not the only issue, but the biggest issue is online shopping. About 4 or 5 months ago, I went over to Valley Fair for the first time since before COVID. I was going to buy some socks. So I parked. This is before they installed cost parking. And, the department stores today are no longer on a grid pattern. They try to make you wander through to look at all this stuff. So I couldn't find the door exiting after I bought my socks that I came in on. And so I found out I was about, I don't know, a quarter of a mile away from where I had parked to enter the store. And I thought when I got to my car, what the hell did I even come here for when I can go and buy those socks on Amazon? So that's the biggest issue. And malls to survive are repurposing themselves. Smart retailers will survive. New ideas will survive in the retail industry. If retailers, and a lot of the ones I mentioned that are gone, simply couldn't adapt to new shopping patterns, to things that consumers want, or things that you tend not to buy online and you go to stores. So I'm not saying that retail is going to disappear. It just it's much different. If you look at even Valley Fair, I think there are a lot of restaurants and entertainment that are filling stores that were, but Valley Fair is an aberration. I mean, if you look at Stanford Shopping Center and Valley Fair during the dot-com bust, the Great Recession, and the COVID recession, you wouldn't know that there was a recession. I mean, that's the resiliency and the income levels and so forth in this area. That does not reflect retail in this country.
True. Abby, you have your hand raised.
I do. Larry, thank you. As someone with a hotel and restaurant in Los Altos, I'd like to share that most of the servers in the restaurants, fine restaurants in our community, make over 100,000 a year, somewhere between 100 and 130,000 a year. There isn't a restaurant here that's fully staffed with servers. That is not a low income. So I'm really concerned that we're putting forth this idea that we don't pay and therefore we can't get help.
I hear that over and over again to restaurants I go to primarily. And yeah, I don't know. I mean, as I mentioned when I was talking about the jobs and the job growth and all that kind of stuff, to follow that thread is pretty confusing. Jobs in the country increasing $400,000 a month for 12 consecutive months, 2 job openings for every unemployed worker. It kind of defies logic, I think. But the one thing I will say about the hotel industry is that, and you probably, smaller, more boutique hotels, not the ones that depend upon conventions and conferences and so forth, in many cases did quite well. In some cases did very well, where people wanted to just get away from home go to Monterey or Napa or Los Altos, and but without getting in an airplane, traveling. So you got to look at the hotel industry from different lenses, I think.
Any other questions or comments? Dennis, did you still have your hand raised? Okay.
No.
I'm just going to ask because I like to have what positive takeaways for someone who does not have stock in those companies mentioned. Like, what are some positive things that we can take from this, Larry, as we move forward in the retail space? As a Chamber of Commerce, a lot of our members are small pop businesses. Like, what can we tell them that would be encouraging in this market? Just kind of like hang in there, things will get better, the tide will change. And then Ginny, I saw your hand raised, but anything you can take away from this, Larry?
Well, I don't begin to understand the retail business. I've been in the real estate investment development business for a long time, but retail is not one of them. But I think, again, I think for certain types of retail like malls, and again, people here tend to anchor their thoughts in what exists here. And I don't think that list of all of those retailers that have gone bankrupt went bankrupt because of their business here in Silicon Valley. Because, retail is a national trend in terms of the major retailers. But what I hear and what I read is that retailers got to be nimble. They've got to be unique. They've got to look at different types of services, and those that are presenting a different brand, a different images seem to be surviving, versus the ones that hold on to a different model that no longer is acceptable to folks. And then learn to live with Amazon and stuff delivered to your door.
So I do have a follow-up. I'm going to let Ginny go. Go ahead, Ginny. Yeah, there you go.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you very much, Larry. I really enjoyed your talk. Very informative on a broad range. Narrowing it down to the assessor's office, how are things and your staffing in there going as we move into the next, I presume, term of your office?
Well, thank you for your assumption.
That's okay.
Well, government is different. One is, I think working in the assessor's office is a cool place. About more than 50% of my staff are professionals, college degrees, either certified appraisers, certified by the state of California, or certified auditors. And of course, the pension plans in government are very attractive. The medical plans here are very attractive to attract workers. So people aren't generally flowing out of here. They're flowing out of my office because the county during COVID gave them an economic incentive to retire early, which meant that I was losing my most senior experienced appraisers and auditors. So right now I have 14 people in the business division. This is the division that assesses mainly companies, high-tech companies, their business equipment. But there's a level of stability in the job market, I think, in government in general, because of the things I just mentioned, that don't exist in a more competitive environment outside of government, where people can, as I said, take advantage of a chaotic labor market and, quit their jobs and know that there's a job available somewhere else. That'll settle down, I'm sure. It better.
Thank you. Larry, my last question, with the closures and some commercial properties being leased and whatnot. I'm hearing stories still of, like, in LA, some restaurants are having the major problems opening up their restaurants because of cities permits and zonings and things like that. Do you see this as a time where cities should take a look at their own policies to either make it easier for businesses to open or not?
Absolutely. Absolutely. You know, no offense to Los Altos, but I was a council member and mayor of Sunnyvale for 16 and a half years. And I invited Bill Clinton to come out in 1993, if you remember that, and he declared the city of Sunnyvale the best run local government in America. But the time it takes, I hear mostly from San Jose because they're the big, the big kahuna in the valley here, how difficult it is, particularly for affordable housing, to get permitted and financing, of course. Redevelopment agencies were eliminated, and I think, at least from a affordable housing standpoint, was a huge, huge mistake and detriment. My partners and I own and developed and manage right now about 500 units of 100% affordable housing, about half of it in San Francisco, the other half in San Jose. Now let me just take the San Jose project. It's like a 260 unit, 100% affordable family project here on Stockton and Linden in San Jose. You can't build affordable housing, which means rents below market rate, without some kind of financing assistance, subsidies, or whatever. You just can't happen. So you combine that with the length of time. To developers, time is money. And the length of time it takes to get an affordable housing project permitted. I chair the Housing Bond Oversight Committee here, the $900 million Housing Bond Oversight Committee. The Board of Supervisors disperses that money. They've dispersed almost 2/3, maybe even close to 3/4 of the money. In other words, they've approved projects, not dispersed it, but approved project for almost 3/4 of the $900 million. And only about 1/4 of that has been built, even less, I think. Why? Because it takes so long to get things both permitted and financed. So getting back to my project here in San Jose, the City of San Jose Housing Department, which got money from redevelopment the redevelopment agency set aside, put $25 million into that property. We could have never done it without that kind of, but it's a wonderful project. I made a deal with the city for some additional assistance on the terms of our loan, and agreed to reduce the income levels to 30% or below on many of the units. So it's a wonderful project, very successful financial project, and 260 people are with income levels at 60% or below stay there. So during COVID, we had maybe 2 or 3 vacancies the entire time and collected over 90% of the rent. They can be successful, but you can't expect developers to develop affordable housing, which defined as rents less than the market value, without some assistance.
Thank you. And our last question is going to come from John Cowan.
Thanks, Anna, and thanks, Larry. Really interesting presentation. I was just curious, and this may be too small a segment to show up too much on your data, but I know anecdotally I hear from kind of small physician practices or dental practices just the challenges that they find finding space in the market. And I was just curious, Larry, if there are any kind of trends that surface in your data and kind of the medical office space?
I don't know. That's a little bit more granular than my pay grade, and so I don't know too much about that. Maybe some of the commercial real estate brokers could give you more information.
All right. Larry, I want to thank you so much for spending time with us this morning. That was a lot of wonderful information, definitely some good takeaways. Is there anything final you want to say to us?
Well, I want to say thank you very much. I enjoy doing this, and I guess the point I made at the end there that I literally changed the text of this presentation almost daily. In fact, I picked up something today from the Mercury News business section that I amended my speech when I came in the office today. And Lori, my secretary, is here, and so she's literally, changing it because the markets are so confusing. I guess that's what you have when you have economic turmoil, and we're in the middle of that. I mean, but until we get out, resolve this inflation, and we're not going to do it overnight, but if we have a trend of getting out of the inflation environment, that's going to be the way forward. So thank you very much. Los Altos, my home backs up to Stevens Creek, so I can see you folks across the across the creek. One of my favorite places.
Thank you so much. I mean, I don't think we can get any more real than what you presented this morning. And you got a vote. Mimi put in the chat box that she voted for you, and I'm sure there are many more people who are. So best of luck, and of course, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you.
Everyone, I just have a couple of reminders from Kim Mosley. The Los Altos Chamber of Commerce is sending a Silicon Valley delegation to Dubai, October 4th to the 11th, to build relationships between our unique communities. So they're seeking elected officials. Did Larry leave us? Because he could go to Dubai. Startups, VCs, education, nonprofit leaders, business owners, community members to meet with the Dubai Chamber of Commerce and meet with officials, business professionals, and potential investors. So more information, call the Chamber office. And there will be no July government affairs meeting due to the holiday. So that being said, we are ending at 9:55. Enjoy your 5 minutes before your 10 o'clock, I'm sure. Any final announcements from the group before I say bye?
Thanks, Diana.
Thank you. All right, bye everyone. Bye.
Thanks, Diana.
Sign up for the golf tournament.
That too.